Dan, I
Yes.
believe you are super prepared for this podcast.
I am so prepared for this podcast.
You came so magnificently prepared. You said you had both a food heist and a bad story idea.
I do.
And you pitched the topic and you brought show and tell.
Yes, I did.
You're just
I
completely
have
showing
so
me
many
up.
things. It's because we haven't recorded in weeks, and so I have like this very small buildup of ideas.
And they're overflowing.
Yeah. My cup runneth over with bad podcast things to talk about.
What do? Do we do your story idea first? Your food heist? Do we do our brackets?
Let's do the food heist first.
Okay.
Because it's incredible.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
I am.
This one is so good. I almost wonder if it's one of our listeners who's like, I'm going to give them something to talk about. Okay? This happened last week.
Okay.
Last week at time of recording, July 6th. Okay? This guy in California broke into a liquor store, or I guess liquor store, it's a wine shop.
Okay.
Drilled a hole through the ceiling, dropped down inside, took the Smile You're on Camera sign and covered the security camera with it.
Ooh,
and then spent 4 hours pulling out the most expensive wines from everywhere. He knew exactly which ones to take. Some of them were hidden in drawers, and he got those. It was about $500,000 worth. And then he went upstairs and tried to take some more out of the actual display store part and set off an alarm and ran.
Okay.
So
but did he get away with the $500,000?
They don't know who he is.
Wow.
It's like this just full-blown Ocean's 11 heist.
This is obviously one of our listeners.
Clearly.
You guys, shame on you.
We told you that it was just a joke.
Yes.
We are very happy that this happened, unless we're part of it, in which case,
yeah,
we are not.
Well. Drilled a hole and came down Mission Impossible style.
Yeah, like on a rope.
On a rope.
Through the ceiling.
On an actual rope. I mean,
yeah.
Wow. I hope that he gets caught because, somebody's out $500,000.
Justice must be served.
Justice must be served. But man, he is going to be a celebrity in food heist prison. If they get him. I mean, this has got to be one of our listeners trying to get into food heist prison.
Yeah, trying to impress us.
Yeah.
Someone's going to show up at the Dragonsteel Expo and say, hey, that was me.
When we get together, secretly, we know that some cataclysm is coming in the future in which we are going to need the expert professional food heist masters.
What food heist prison really is just a very sneaky way of gathering the greatest food heist minds that have ever come together.
It's like, Fast and Furious, where they always, in the start, needed them for car-related heist purposes. We will need our team of food heist experts.
Yeah.
And this is a calling card that some dynamic person has made. They will definitely be on the team.
So speaking of food heist prison, the groundskeeper lost the pole.
Yes, the groundskeeper lost the pole.
Which I have to assume is on purpose.
Yes.
Right?
Well, the groundskeeper does everything on purpose.
He's trying to keep a low profile.
Yeah.
He doesn't want a big T-shirt with himself on it.
He's gone around and intimidated our listeners.
Yeah.
And somehow, without them even knowing, probably hypnotized them.
Was he intimidating them, or was he just really hyping up the potato heist?
The potato heist? Probably that, yeah.
I do love the idea of a T-shirt that says, "Do not steal these nutritious, unguarded potatoes," and then just a picture of a field of potatoes with no explanation.
That would make a really good T-shirt.
Yeah.
Yes, but that one has indeed our first upset. Our first upset. That is that one has indeed lost.
Okay. Oh, I should say one more thing about the food heist before we talk about the brackets.
Yeah.
This one was actually sent to me by a listener named Adam Burgess. He's the one who sent one of the ones I complained about.
Okay.
Like the beating up a guy with a frozen fish or something.
I love that one.
It was a good one, but it wasn't a heist. And so he sent me this one and he said, please, this will redeem me. Which actually makes me think that maybe it was Adam Burgess that's drilled through the ceiling of the wine shop.
Adam seems more like the man in the chair to the person who's drilling.
He's the mastermind that coordinated. Because I assume there's also a hacker. There's also like all kinds of other things going on.
So,
Okay.
yeah, definitely when we get our team together, right? Adam will be one of our recruitment officers.
So if any members of the California law enforcement system are listening to our show, please find Adam Burgess and
and ask him who stole the wine.
how many hundreds of thousands of dollars of wine he has hidden in his closet. Hey, speaking of which, when people send me food heists,
Yes.
almost every single one comes in an email to my wife that says, hey, I don't know how to reach you. I'm going to try this and see if it works. Almost every single one. So we're going to formalize that process.
Did they email your wife?
No, that they're going to email somebody here, like Octavia or something.
Okay.
Where do we point them? We need an official landing point for food heist suggestions.
I think we should have, do you want a separate one from just an intentionally blank? Because we could make just like intentionally, it could be intentionally at Dragonsteel or something like that. We could do IBS at Dragonsteel.
Intentionally blank services. We'll eventually, of course, have to change that email when we get a real name for the podcast, because this is a temporary placeholder, stupid name.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think? What do you think?
We do have Adam here who is in charge, and there's Octavia who just poked her head in.
I think maybe just a whole intentionally
just the whole thing. If people want to give
you
feedback,
should get IBS at Dragonsteel and have ops make that for us. Intentionally blank services, because it's so related to food heists. I mean, some of the people who are food heisting, it's going to lead to some.
They're going to need some Tums.
Yeah. So IBS at Dragonsteel is if you want to talk to us about the podcast in any way.
Yeah, and if you have any food heists to submit, IBS at dragonsteel.com, and I will start mentioning you by name as I did with Adam Burgess.
Yes,
I won't necessarily SWAT you by sending cops to your house, but Adam's clearly guilty.
But do not send us bad story ideas. Save your bad story ideas, because someday you may want to write those books. They may actually turn into good story ideas, because many good story ideas start as bad story ideas.
Yes.
So don't send those to us. We're fully capable of coming up with bad story ideas, but, you know.
And I do have one, but should we do brackets first?
Brackets. All right, so this week, we're getting down to the ones that are pretty close to one another. For food heists, we have the Gnocchi Brothers Gnocchi restaurant. $30,000 of beautiful fresh gnocchi stolen from the Gnocchi Brothers. This is the first food heist I can really remember. There might have been one before, but this is the one that really popped in my head.
This was the one that made you a fan of the
genre.
And then
Tailgating Something Nefarious, which is $9 million of probably mostly meat from all over the Midwest.
Yeah, and we hypothesized that it was the mafia that stole all that meat.
Stole that meat. So links in the description for you to listen to those exact episode recordings. The Gnocchi Brothers one is 4 minutes long, it looks like, and the other one is, we went off on that one, this is 6 minutes long.
Oh, well.
So you can you'll listen to those and then vote. Do try to listen to be an informed voter. So our bad story ideas, we have Weekend at Vader's with an actual zombie.
Love that one.
This one kind of grew, This became a thing. I don't even remember how we started talking about it.
I don't remember where it came from, but the idea is that one of Vader's people that he tries to kill accidentally kills him first and then has to pretend that he's alive.
Yep.
To keep the fleet running.
That whole podcast, we just kept... We went a little...
That was like most of the podcast.
We went a little hard on that one. And then The Jungle Book, but with dragons and middle school. This is one of my very old ideas from my notebook that I never wrote, which is Kid Raised by Dragons goes to middle school.
Yeah.
And middle school story about the poor kid. This one's actually maybe too good of a story idea to be on the bad story ideas. It's like in that lukewarm
is. It's absolutely one we could develop and do something cool with if we had the time.
Yep.
I still think that if I were to do it, I would make it a picture book.
Yeah.
So he's like in elementary school.
Yeah.
A little simpler. What does he have in his lunchbox? How does he, play in the sandbox with everyone else?
I think that would make a legit good picture book, like I said, on the actual podcast episode when we did that. So there you go. Go be informed, voters. Thank you for participating so far. Our first upset just came in, so maybe there will be more.
All right. Do you want another bad story idea?
I do.
Okay. Because I have one. And this is absolutely the wrong... 2023 is the wrong time to be pitching a story about heroic Soviet soldiers.
Okay, it's already starting off on a bad foot.
Yeah, there we go. So Stalingrad, the main thing that Russia had in World War II was just dudes. They had so many soldiers. And in Stalingrad, this is a real historical thing. Maybe not every single soldier, but a significant number of the infantry that they brought in, they gave everybody bullets, but they gave every other person a gun.
Famously depicted in
Enemy at the
Gates. Yeah.
Jude Law and Ed Harris. Love that movie.
Yep.
So I had this idea of what if we tell a story about the guy with the gun and the little guy with bullets following him around, and they somehow get separated and lost in the city because it was absolutely insane, street to street and room to room fighting. And then have some kind of very tense bonding story. Like, I mean, he needs to stay with the gun guy to be safe because he doesn't have his own gun. And he's kind of just waiting for the gun guy to die. And how do they get along? And like, what if one of them's a jerk and they get to bond as they hide in the ruins? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's something there, maybe.
I don't know.
How do you explain them just not picking up a gun from the many corpses around them?
Oh, I don't explain that. That's part of why this is a bad story.
Maybe this is a lefty gun. You got to have lefty bullets. They found the lefties. They're like, all right, here's your lefty gun. Here's your lefty bullets.
Maybe they get stranded in a part of the city that was just German soldiers. And so he doesn't know how to use those guns.
Yeah, those guns are in German.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you got to count in German when you fire them.
No idea. He was trained on one kind of rifle.
Yeah.
He can't use the other one.
No. You can't use those German guns.
Anyway, so there you go.
Okay. Buddy movie. You could make some, lighthearted buddy movie about the guy with the gun. Like, maybe the guy with the gun gets given bullets. They're all duds. And so they spend the whole time having to work together to use the guy's bullets and the guy's gun, to have a meaningful time shooting enemy soldiers, growing together. It's like a romance.
It's a bromance.
Yeah, bromance.
It's a buddy cop movie, except they're not cops. They're Soviet soldiers that we're going to make heroic in 2023. So that's a bad idea.
That is a pretty bad idea.
Yeah. I thought you would enjoy that.
I do enjoy that. I don't know, like, what led you to think of that?
I have no idea. I don't know why I was thinking about the Stalingrad gun thing. It wasn't Enemy at the Gates. It was something else.
We watched that for Scar's. No, Scar was already married. Somebody's bachelor party. Alan's bachelor party?
Maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've seen that movie like 3 times. I love it.
Yeah. Well, you might have recommended it because someone said, oh, this is a good movie. We should watch this.
That was probably me.
Yeah. So it was at one of the bachelor parties. It
might have been Alan's.
I want to say it's the bachelor party where we went laser tagging and then watched a movie or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
Your
bachelor party, we went to a computer cafe in Salt Lake City and played like Halo or something?
It wasn't Halo. It was like some Unreal Tournament or something like that.
Just shot each other.
Yeah, we just shot each other. That was fun.
Micah was spawn camping the whole night.
Yep. And we've talked about taking Scar to laser tag before, I believe. Have we on the podcast?
No, I don't think we have.
So this is our friend who was in the military, is now head of Dragonsteel Security. Scar from Bridge 4. And we took him laser tagging. Mistake on our parts.
He's been in military for years.
Yes. Absolutely dominated us in just the most embarrassing way possible.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they keep your score. And Scar, the thing about it, I swear I've told this story. He realized very early on, it's like, oh, there's no consequences other than little mark against my name. If I run in and shoot 10 people and then get shot, I'm winning. And of course that makes perfect sense. In normal, military operations, you don't want to be shooting 10 guys and then, getting killed yourself. But he's like, yeah. And so we would all be like doing the little hiding behind the things, looking for a guy shooting. And then Scar would just come by. He's like, it's like he's in an action movie and there's just people falling dead all around him. And we're all panicking and then shooting at him. He'll get 10 kills and then he'll drop. And then he goes back and resets. And then we'll all be doing our creeping along. And then just Scar tears through us and kills everybody.
Yeah. Perfect aim.
Yeah.
That's a bad story idea right there, too.
What's that?
I don't know. Just like if soldiers can come back to life in real life instead of just in like laser tag and video games.
Yeah.
Then you remove consequences and everything becomes like a blitzkrieg instead of
That is
tactics.
interesting. Yeah.
I don't know.
What would be the consequences? Like how do you even have a real war where people respawn?
I don't know, because it's like in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie where it's like the pirates can't die, but we're still going to spend half an hour fighting them with swords.
Yes.
Like, why?
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
And I love that movie dearly, but all the fight the pirates scenes are kind of ridiculous because they can't die. So what's the point?
Yeah.
So that would be an interesting, very like Silver Age science fiction story to tell, where the first part is like, ooh, we can't die. We can do whatever we want. And then they realize, well, the enemy can't die either. So maybe we need to resolve our conflicts in a different way.
Legit good story idea there. Yeah. I could absolutely see getting an issue of F and SF or something, or Asimov's in the old days, and reading that story.
Some short story or novelette. Well, there you go. That's an idea for Robert Silverberg in 1972. That's all for you, buddy. All right. So now do you want to hear the thing I want to talk about?
Yes.
Okay.
Now that we're 17 minutes into our podcast.
17 minutes in. Thank you for your patience, wonderful listeners. We know that all you mostly just listen for the food heists, but we do have to fill the rest of the time.
I got stuff to sign. We got to keep talking.
Okay. So I have many, many times almost worked for Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. I wrote a whole novella for Magic the Gathering that remains unpublished. I was hired to write a book for them right before Hasbro killed their entire publishing wing. The story I want to tell today is when they flew me out for a job interview as a flavor text guy for Magic. Okay, do you remember this?
I do remember this.
Okay, it's because this was way back in college. This was like 2005, I want to say. Which is after college, but we were still doing
had I sold? Because in 2005 I'd sold.
2005?
So was it before that, or
I know it was 2005 because that's when this game came out, and that's one of the things I'm going to talk about.
Elantris.
Yeah,
and
I had not sold. I think I sold in 2008.
Okay.
So anyway, part of this process, in order to get past, give them a resume, and then the next phase was that they sent me this questionnaire and was like, here, write a bunch of essays about all of this stuff. And one of the questions was, what is a game that you think has really good flavor and lore? And I can't remember what I talked about. And then they said, what's a game that you think has really bad flavor and lore? And I was running a game review website at the time. And so people sent me stuff to review. And the one I used was actually a Wizards of the Coast game.
Smart.
Called Hecatomb. I don't know if anyone remembers Hecatomb. This game died a miserable death back in the early 2000s glut of CCGs when everyone was making them. And this one was funky because the cards are pentagons printed on plastic so that they're clear.
Yeah, so the edges are clear and the center is
the
a little bit.
Is that you can stack them, and then this card has extra powers.
Yeah, so if you're just listening, they have these pentagon shaped.
Yeah. Like if you've seen the card game Gloom, same kind of thing, printed on clear plastic.
So that you can add and stack things in interesting ways.
And as you stack them, then they gain extra powers or they gain extra whatever. So anyway, that's the game. And the problem with it that I complained about in this daring essay was that the cards themselves are very interesting. because they're little monsters. Like there's big gods like Cthulhu is in it. There's vampires. There's little demons. My favorite was something called the Vader.
Oh, that's a good name. Yeah,
that's a great name, right?
Yeah.
But the cards cannot attack on their own. They can't do anything until you combine them with other cards, at which point it's not a Vader anymore. It's like some weird combination of a Vader and a vampire. Like the flavor completely falls apart when you start combining the cards. Yeah. So anyway, I complained about that in my essay and somehow got invited to the next stage anyway. They flew me out, had this big 2 or 3 hour interview. And I found out from one of the dudes on their flavor team that me complaining about Hecatomb is why I got the interview.
Really?
Because, and I don't know if this is true of everyone who worked at Wizards of the Coast, but that guy, at least in particular, was like, yeah, we could never get the flavor right for this game. Because if the cards are really cool, then the combination of the cards loses the flavor. But if the combination of the cards is really cool, then the individual cards are a little boring. He said one of their early concepts was maybe doing it as robots. And so you would have an engine or a buzzsaw or whatever, and you'd combine them together, which sounds awesome, but in practice, somebody opens a pack of cards and they don't have the Vader, they just have a buzzsaw. And so the cards themselves were very disappointing. And then he asked the question that I foolishly had not prepared for, which was, how would you fix it? And I've thought about that a lot in, the years since, but at the time I didn't have a really good answer for it. And so I'm curious to know, because I have some good ideas now, how would you fix that?
Oh, that seems pretty obvious. Not obvious, but a way seems pretty obvious to me. Because I'm just drawing upon, what my kids like to do and things like that.
Yeah.
I would make the things on the sides adjectives. Instead of, so you play the Vader and then you modify it into an ethereal Vader, right? An ethereal vampire. It's not a combination of, you've got a ghost card, it adds ethereal to something, right? And so you can do the whole...
The one card would be a ghost.
Yes.
And that is a cool thing on its own.
Yep.
Big scary ghost.
Yep.
And it has one trait that it can contribute to a
different thing. You can slide it under, and you've got your vampire. Now you've got your pirate vampire. I'm joking, not pirate, but you know what I mean. You add, and so it just adds these powers that are flavorful for the thing. So you've got the thing where you're like, do I want to have a ghost and a vampire? Or do I want to have an ethereal vampire that has the vampire powers, but also some of the ghost powers? And then it leads to interesting game decisions, right? Because whether you want to put all your eggs in one basket or go wide allows you to have game design that goes one of those two directions.
So that's a cool solution to the problem. The one that I have eventually come up with is to do it as a team or a crew.
Okay.
Like if all the cards were Star Trek people and you were trying to assemble them into a crew, so they could go out and do missions, or
that's a good
heist
idea.
Crew. You've got an infiltrator, you've got a thief, you've got a hacker, and you kind of meld them together into a cool crew that can then go do a job.
Yeah, though it doesn't feel like it's melding because one picture goes underneath the other, and you can't if you didn't see, if you're just listening, in the center is a cool picture. On the sides are all clear except for one edge.
Yeah, just one little edge.
That adds the power.
If
when
the
you
edge
put it
is where it said, what the role was, and then you'd need some other cards to be like, okay, this is the job you have to do now.
Yeah,
and then you have created a team that can do it. I don't know.
I think you would need some other way to combine the cards. Like if it's just a big stack, the flavor on a big stack doesn't work for a team for me as well.
Well, and that does suggest other things. Like when you have these kind of cards, you don't necessarily have to stack them perfectly on top. You could build some kind of little molecule diagram where they connect in different ways. I don't know. Anyway, I've always wondered about that because I bombed that interview so hard because I couldn't answer that question.
That question could have,
Yeah. And I'm very grateful I didn't get that job, honestly, because it was right before I sold Serial Killer. I probably would not be the author that I am today. I would probably just be writing flavor text on magic cards.
Yeah, but you hunted working for Wizards pretty hard for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Game design is one of your things. I mean, you get to do it now in part with us.
Yay! Yes, I'm working on Stormlight RPG.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun. And I hope to be working on other projects as well, which I will not talk about. But I did eventually kind of sort of work with Wizards in that I partnered with them when I ran a campaign, a D&D campaign on Twitch.
Okay, yeah.
And they didn't sponsor it, like give us money, but they gave us a ton of product. They gave us all these D&D Beyond accounts. They helped promote it and advertise it a little bit. So my long, almost history with Wizards. And they did, pay me for the novella, even though it hasn't been published. So
did you submit to their Design a World thing?
I did.
Became Eberron?
Mm-hmm.
What did you submit?
It was back in like 99.
Mm-hmm.
They did a big contest that was everybody submit your ideas for a new world. Because D&D 3rd edition was brand new, and they're like, we want some world books for this, and we don't want to just reprint the old ones, even though I wish they had. Now they're starting to do that with 5th edition.
It was a smart idea to come up with a new one.
It was
and
a
run
very good
campaign.
idea. So I and our friend Eric Ehlers, who was also on Leading Edge magazine staff, I know he and I worked together on several. I submitted probably 4 ideas to that. The only 2 I remember is one of them was a pretty direct ripoff of Pirates of Dark Water. Do you remember that cartoon?
Yep. It's a cool cartoon.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I loved it. And I was like, I want a big fantasy seafaring water world kind of thing.
Slightly an inspiration for Trust of the Emerald Sea.
Really?
The idea of I love the idea of water that was a different kind of water. I've always loved that, and so that in the back of my head is a little bit of an inspiration for
that's really
Secret
cool.
Project 1. But anyway.
That was such a good cartoon.
Yeah,
it got like 1 season, and I don't think it even got a full season.
It lives in that no man's land of, hey, can we upscale this animation to just hit a slightly older demographic, right? That created so many cool shows and that were completely rejected by the TV watching.
Well, and it was early 80s, which I think was just before its time.
I thought it was early 90s.
Was it?
Yeah.
Anyway, it was...
Adam, Pirates of Dark Water.
Back in the day, I think if Pirates of Dark Water had come out like at the same time Last Airbender did,
right,
then there's an audience that loves that kind of stuff.
And you might be right. It might have to be 80s because by the 90s, we had Batman the Animated Series, which had successfully stepped up one notch. 91. Okay.
So early 80s. I mean, early 90s, not early 80s.
I just remember when I was watching it, how old I was. And I was the right age for it because I would have been like 15, 16. I'm like, oh, it's a cartoon. Oh, this cartoon's actually good.
This is really cool. They had good world building. They had good characters. They had a long, like, overarching plot.
Yeah.
Which, again, all stuff that would land perfectly today and did not land in 91.
Would it land perfectly? Because we still have this problem. I mean, Into the Spider-Verse, doing really well.
Yeah.
But a fraction of what Spider-Man, the live action ones, have done, right? And
did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It'll land like the second one will land at half of a regular Spider-Man. Probably.
That's crazy.
And it is Spider-Verse movies are the best Spider-Man movies.
Oh yeah.
And so there's that. Like, yes, Arcane did well, but did it do well with our crowd or with the general public?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I mean by land perfectly, right?
Okay.
Like, there's an audience for it. Last Airbender,
but Last
Adventure
Airbender,
Time, Gravity Falls, those have all been successful, even though they haven't been mainstream.
they all pretended to be kids shows.
Well, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. If you pretend to be a kid show, you're fine. If you pretend, but if you say, no, we're for teenagers, like mid to older teenagers, then you just fall flat. If you say, we're for adults, we're edgy and hardcore, then those do well. It's that no man's land that I'm talking about. It's the treasure planets of the world. It's the Titan AEs of the world. It's Pirates of Dark Water. That realm that it just flops
Yeah.
every time.
Well, and that's what happened to the Disney Atlantis movie.
Yeah.
It was that teenage adventure cartoon,
Mhm.
which was not their demographic at all, and it didn't do well. It's a great movie, but it didn't do nearly as well as all their other stuff.
Adam has an update for
Just
us.
to give you some specifics on box office numbers
Yeah.
between the Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man No Way Home worldwide was 1.9 billion.
1.9.
9 billion.
Yeah.
Across the Spider-Verse is currently at 650 million.
Yeah.
Worldwide.
Wow.
So there's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, a third.
A third.
Well,
So
I actually haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse yet,
Oh, haven't
but
you?
I just rewatched Into the Spider-Verse, and
See
I
it.
love it
So
even
we can
more.
talk. We can talk.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have to wait till it comes to Disney Plus.
You have to wait to come to my theater.
I don't
yeah.
go to real theaters anymore.
That's all right.
I'm probably going to end up breaking my rule and going to a real theater to watch the new Mission Impossible because I love those dearly.
I can't say anything because I'm the person who took how long? I just finished Ted Lasso season 2. In fact, we'll talk Ted Lasso season 2 next episode. So if you haven't caught up on Ted Lasso and you're planning to, you can watch up to season 2.
1 week.
You have 1 week warning.
We spoil it all.
Spoilers. But it's been out for like a year and however long, and
Yeah,
I'm
season 3 is
finally
already out and over. So
Mm-hmm.
season 2 is what we'll talk about next week.
Yep.
Yeah. And now, the other thing that I remember submitting.
Yes.
I submitted like 4 settings, like I said. But the only 2 I remember were the water one and then like a post-apocalyptic one, but like a magic apocalypse where some kind of, Forgotten Realms, but after some magical thing had destroyed everything. It was very ill-formed. If I were to do it again, I would have much better ways of describing it. Back then, it was very
Did they have language that you kept rights to your worlds when you submitted them, or
No,
you
did not.
They just got whatever you
Well,
submitted.
I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was if we use this, then it's ours, and if we don't, then nobody cares.
Yeah, but it was nobody cares. Like I remember reading that. I don't think I submitted.
No, and you didn't because you didn't want to lose rights to
I didn't want to
anything
lose
you
rights
created.
to anything because I actually distinctly remember whenever this thing was, I was developing Roshar, the Stormlight Archive, and I was working on that planet. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should. And the idea of losing rights to it, so
was just not, and what's his name that did Eberron?
yeah,
Mike Elliott?
Keith, not Richards.
Oh, yeah, it is a Keith.
Keith Baker.
Keith Baker.
Haha. I knew a game thing more than you.
He is. Eberron is actually my favorite D&D setting.
It is a fantastic setting.
It is incredible. He was absolutely the right winner. He went about it in a much smarter way than any of ours did. Although I would dearly love to go back and do that Darkwater one.
Yeah, he really impressive setting. Worked really well.
Yeah.
So we immediately bought that book. Their marketing worked, and we immediately played a campaign in it.
We ran the longest D&D campaign we ever did. We didn't get to level 20, but we got
that was
15 or 16.
That was Cinethar. The really aged was Eberron. One of my favorite characters ever. The ultimate Brandon character.
Yes.
The conflux of all things coming together into Cinethar, which I believe we've talked about.
They're just the ancient, like, undead elven lich who gets carried around on a palanquin all the time.
Yep. What happened because Brandon read the book and melded this is because in Eberron they had these like good energy, good magic liches, right?
Yeah.
Good magic undead. I'm like, oh, I love that. I love that.
It was an elven culture that worshipped death. It was very clever and very well built.
Then the mechanical side said, hey, I can min-max because you get like -2 strength and +1 intelligence if you're older. Like it's actually hard. It's like -2 strength, -2 con, +1 intelligence, +1 wisdom. And I'm like, min-max, you say. And then there was like another rank beyond that where it's like you lost like 3 and 3 and gained 1 and 1. I'm like, I'm cool with that. So the reason Cinethar had to be carried around on a palanquin is he had like a 3 strength or less.
He couldn't even walk on his own.
Couldn't walk on his own. But he had the highest stats, at least in 2 stats. And so he did the whole cleric and wizard and did multi-class into like the prestige class.
Yeah.
They gave you levels in both, and turned out it's a very powerful combination.
My character in that was one of the most fun and least effective D&D characters I've ever built.
Which is saying something for you.
Yes. He was a shifter, ranger, and I'm like, oh, wait, if I go down this specific line of like ranger powers and feats, I can have like 20 attacks per melee round. And so that's all I focused on. So min-maxing, but like in the absolute wrong direction.
Yeah.
And third edition is where they had damage reduction. So by the time we were level 15, we're fighting these things with like damage reduction, whatever.
Yeah, if you haven't played D&D, it means every hit gets this much taken off of it. So if
like you hit it for
the-
15 damage, but it only takes 5 because it reduces it by 10.
And you had built a character who did lots of hits for low damage amounts.
Yeah.
And
So I'd go up against like a giant golem. We were all constructs. Micah had it was all giants and constructs at the end. So our rogue couldn't sneak attack anything. And I was doing like 2 damage a round after just wailing on it 20 times. It was delightful. But I could brachiate through a forest.
You could indeed brachiate through a forest. And I could float around on, by then I had a flying carpet instead of palanquin. And I could fly around on my flying carpet and cast all kinds of spells.
Yeah. What was the name? Because your brother Jordo, every time we got somewhere, he would say, it's the Danger Boys.
It was
or
like Danger Squad.
Yeah.
He named us.
The Extreme Action Force?
You got it.
Extreme Action
It was
Force.
Extreme Action Force.
And we always laughed when he said it, and Micah took it as in-game dialogue. And so eventually we showed up somewhere, and all these like giants that were nefarious necromancers or something said, oh no, it's the Extreme Action Force, and we all lost it.
Yeah, that's Jordo for you. He came up with that name for us as a joke. That was Pepsi Gun 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 too, wasn't it? Yeah, Pepsi Gun Gun Gun.
So my son, who today is 14, this was when he was like 2 or 3 years ago. And one of the guys in the group, JD, would always bring Pepsi and drink it. And of course, my little boy wanted some. We didn't want to give him any. And so one day he's like, okay, I'll give you this. And he finished his Pepsi, rinsed out the can, filled it with water, and gave it to my 2-year-old. And he got like psychosomatically high on imaginary caffeine, and it was incredible.
Yeah. Dancing on the table, yelling Pepsi Gun 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 for some reason.
Yeah. Well, that's how he shot people. He didn't say bang, he would say gun.
Yeah, that's
so he'd run up to you and go, gun, gun, gun. So he at one point stood on the table and shouted, Pepsi, gun, 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 like
in his diaper, nothing else.
It was wonderful.
Yep.
And then later in the campaign, we were fighting like a Tarrasque.
Yeah, some monster.
And Jordo said, well, I think the only way to solve this is Pepsi, gun, gun, gun. And he jumped down its throat.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Jordo is really fun to role play with.
Yes.
My brother, he is, he's a fun dude and very gregarious in his role playing.
Someday, I will tempt you back into a role-playing game. I know that you have no time for it and that you have sworn them off so you can get your work done and get books written. But I'm actively working against your productivity.
Someday I'll get you back into the Magic the Gathering.
I really actually want to play the Lord of the Rings set.
The Lord of the Rings set is great. It's, I think, might be their best flavor set that they've ever done.
Well, I mean, when you just are using the flavor of this wonderful thing that already exists.
They obviously just really love the IP. And the cards are such good representations for Magic's mechanics of the characters.
The characters all do what you would expect them to do.
They do these cool things. Like there's a really cool Gandalf that every time you cast another spell, he does something. And on the 4th one, he bounces into your hand. Because he goes away after he's done his stuff.
He leaves all the time.
He leaves. And so
he's wonderful.
Powerful. Oh, he's back in your hand.
Okay, so I was looking at, because I wanted to buy the commander decks for this.
Yes.
And then I couldn't find in for like less than $80 a piece, so I haven't bought them. But I was looking at them, and it looks like a lot of them have a monarch mechanic where you like steal it back and forth
Yes.
And sometimes Aragorn's the monarch, or Faramir, or Denethor.
You, the player, are the monarch.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's an interesting...
It's a thing they added to the multiplayer Commander games that actually works really well, because what they found is people in these games just sit back and build their boards and don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
They added this thing where if you attack someone and they're the monarch, you get to be the monarch and you get to draw an extra card every turn. And you draw it at the end of your turn to encourage you to attack and take it, and someone else to attack and take it. And so it made the games more active.
So this is a pre-existing Magic thing that just happens to fit Faramir and Denethor and stuff really, really well. That's cool.
Well, the other pre-existing mechanic, food, was a thing from a set a number of years ago in Magic, where you make a little token that you sacrifice to gain life. And so guess what the hobbits do in Lord of the Rings?
That's perfect.
They make food.
I assume Sam makes
food.
Potatoes.
Mary, if you make a food, makes another food, so you could have second breakfast after your first breakfast.
That's wonderful.
It's really an amusing way of doing things.
Okay.
Yeah. Rosie Cotton makes someone bigger, gives them like a counter every time food enters the battlefield, and she makes one.
That's so cool.
So she comes and makes a food. You eat the food, your character gets stronger. Anytime there's more food, Rosie spices it, and the food is better. You know, just the flavor on it is really, really good.
That's so great. Yeah, I might, since the Commander decks are so expensive, I might just end up getting a booster box.
You could just come to one of our drafts. You get to take the cards home.
I could.
Yeah.
I can bring my boys, though.
You can bring your
Can
boys.
I bring an 11-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay.
I brought Joel when he was 11.
Well, then I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
No, because I haven't played Magic in like 13 years, right?
Yes.
I've played with you,
Yeah.
but I haven't played with anyone else in 13 years. I used to collect them. I used to buy them all the time. Innistrad, the first Innistrad was my last set. And then during COVID, my boys found all of my cards. They found my huge collection of Magic cards. And so they play all the time, and they play with their friends all the time. We just went on a church camp, and they brought all the Magic decks, and that's what they spent most of their time doing, playing Magic on a picnic table. The problem with that is that they're using decks I built.
Which
I
are
build
all
weird decks.
dumb. Yes.
They're not necessarily dumb, they're just weird. Like I built, I have, of course, a squirrel deck, which is the signature. I have a Last Laugh deck. Do you remember that card?
Yep. Yeah.
And that deck...
No Profusion deck.
Yeah, I have a Null Profusion. I have all the just weird combo decks that do one thing. And so because they've been using the same decks for like 3 years, a very clear meta has formed, and they will fight over who gets the Tree Folk deck and things like that. Yep. No one will ever play squirrels into Last Laugh,
right? Because
it would be terrible. And so I need to. I broke down all of my decks, and I taught them about Commander, and I said, "You guys are going to build your own decks. You're going to build Commander decks because it's such a perfect casual format." So we'll see what they come up with.
Okay. How's that, Ben?
Look at it.
That's so great.
Your fans made this for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Why am I the only one with a bald spot? He has a bald spot.
Yours is more pronounced.
Yes, I know.
If you're listening, hop on YouTube.
Yeah, for those not benefiting from the video feed, actual How's That Ben just ran in wearing a How's That Ben shirt, and I've never been happier in my life.
Me too.
I'm going to show this clip to your wives and be like, wedding day?
My wedding day was pretty great. It has just been surpassed.
Yeah.